Proxies! It feels like a little while ago, only a couple of years, that proxies were just really rare to see. People did not proxy things in Commander at all, and proxies were only talked about when you were like building a gauntlet to test your competitive deck against. However, the pandemic rolled around and Wizards of the Coast decided to just throw organized play in the bin, and Commander became the most popular way to play Magic. And with Commander not being a competitive format where you have to have the original cards because it's not mandated by the rules of stores or Wizards themselves, proxies have become more and more popular. In today's video, I'm going to talk about what proxies are, how I feel about them, and we're going to laugh at some very silly comments from Facebook of all places. You can be anti-proxy if you have a legitimate reason, and I think there are some elements of wanting to play within the confines of the game itself that I can maybe just about accept. But the reasons we're going to look at today are laughably bad. Like clown paint on, huge red rubber shoes, just vomiting everywhere. I'm going to have to beep a few bits of that. We're less than a minute into the video and I said vomiting. If you're going to pick up a single product or sealed product for your Magic decks for your competitive events or Commander, use the link in the description below to get 5% off your order and to help support the show from CoolStuffInc.com. And if you buy anything from Murders at Karlov Manor, you can get a free Orc army token that looks like this. That's me and my dog fighting back the hordes of darkness. Let's get some terminology straight right out of the gate. What people refer to as proxies is not literally what a proxy is in the hard and fast rules of judge documentation and how Wizards look at the game. A proxy is explained by Google as an unofficial substitute for an official Magic card. But the real definition, which is not hugely relevant to this video, but I want to bring it up so people understand the entire conversation, is that a proxy is something issued by a judge to allow you to continue to play an event after one of your cards has been damaged to the point that it's no longer playable. Let's say you're playing an event and you're playing your favorite Helium Squirter constructed deck, and a wild bear bursts through the door. It's just roaring and it's ferocious. Luckily, no one is hurt. A handsome Magic the Gathering YouTube personality with a great beard and a yellow t-shirt wrestles the bear with his manly arms. He just fucking punches it in the face. I wouldn't punch it in the face. I'd talk to it. I'd talk to it man to bear. I'd ration and reason with the bear. But no one was hurt, but it did maul your deck in particular. One of your copies of Helium Squirter is now damaged, unsleeve playable. Not sleeve playable within a sleeve. It's either got teeth marks in it or maybe it's got bear cum in the sleeve. So the judge wants to allow you to continue playing in the event. Just poke myself in the eye. So they issue you a basic forest with the words Helium Squirter written on it, so you continue to squirt your way across the event, ending 0-4. For those of you that are really new to Magic, Helium Squirter is not a constructed playable Magic card, even if it is beautiful. This is a proxy. This is a proximity, a simulacrum of a Magic card to allow you to continue playing. Within the terms of like how stores can operate under Wizards of the Coast, the thing that we all refer to as proxies is really playtest cards. Before we move too far on, I guess the most famous example of a proxy issued by a judge was when Nexus of Fate was only available in foil, and thus they were warping in certain habitats and thus could be cut to index. So across the world, judges were issuing proxies for Nexus of Fate so people could play them because they were only available in foil as a box topper. This also happened for a small window, as mentioned in the Judge Academy guide for this stuff, with Kess Dissident Mage, which is originally a Commander card and only available in foil. And yes, Kess Dissident Mage saw a small amount of legacy play for a little while, and thus it mattered that you might have only one singular foil in your deck. But what the majority of us refer to as proxies are playtest cards. Cards that allow you to play in unsanctioned events or test your deck before you buy the cards. Now, playtest cards can range from you writing the name of a card like Doubling Season on a basic forest, through to art cards that I quite like as proxies. They are thinner than normal Magic cards, but once they're double sleeved, it's almost unrecognizable. You can't really play them in a tournament, but this is Commander we're talking about. It's not important for a tournament. I'll also talk about the legality of all this via Wizards in a moment. This Esper Sentinel here is because I can't find the one Esper Sentinel I bought at Command Fest London. I bought an Italian one off of a vendor, and it is somewhere in amongst my collection, and I cannot find it if I love nor money. Right through to these custom artwork cards that are the right thickness and size, but they are not even pretending to be Magic cards. This is a Thalia's Lieutenant that was done by Sheepwave. I'll link to their Twitter on the description below. It's a version of My First Sona. There's an old joke that My First Sona would be a lobster. And then right through to this. This is an artist proof, which is kind of a different thing. It is a Titus Lintner sold to me artist proof of Urza's Saga. There's a limited number of these in the world. It's a foil one that he has signed for me, and he does owe me a sketch on this as well. But either way, this is not tournament legal because it has no magic back, and thus it is effectively the closest you can get to an official proxy, not including MTG30, because those were also official proxies, right? Because they're not, or playtest cards, because they're not tournament legal. Playtest cards are playable when playtesting or playing unsanctioned events, which means tournaments without prizes. If we go by the literal WPN store support from Wizards, a playtest card is almost commonly a basic resource with the name of a different card written on it as a marker. Playtest cards are not reproductions of authentic Wizards products and are created by players for personal and non-commercial use to test deck concepts. These are playtest cards is allowed within the retail stores only for non-commercial use in unsanctioned events. So in short, you can't play in tournaments or official events that you're paying for in theory either. That's what a playtest card is. Now, as that mentioned, it's not an actual reproduction of a Magic card. If you were to try and reproduce a Magic card, then that's a fake. That's a counterfeit. The distinct difference with a counterfeit is that it is designed to be sold as a Magic card. It's designed to fool people, or to be bought and used to fool people. Beyond that, you are also utilizing copyrighted art and copyrighted imagery and iconography, the tap symbol, the mana symbols, and similar when you're reproducing the exact Magic card. That is why the most, if not all, good proxy artists will avoid doing so, because there's a copyright materials that you shouldn't have on your proxies to avoid that issue. I do have a moral stance on counterfeiting because I don't believe that the long-term health of the game is supported by counterfeiting Magic cards to play in events. I'm a big proponent and a big consumer advocate and making formats accessible and cheaper. I've banged the drum of reprinting fetch lands and other staples for the longest time. So I do appreciate that some people see counterfeiting as a way of getting into formats for cheaper. But ultimately, game stores, tournament organizers, secondary market resellers, and just the entire Magic economy and keeping Magic alive itself as a game all hinge upon the cards not becoming rampant with counterfeiting. That's why I am staunchly anti-counterfeit. It's probably not a surprising stance for me to take. I am pro-proxy, anti-counterfeit. I am pro-you playing whatever you want in our unsanctioned games, but organized play hinges upon the cards being real. There's an element of arbitrariness to the philosophy behind that, but Magic survives at the back of being a collectible game. Cards being collectible is important. We'll circle back round to that at the very end of the video. So, why am I pro-proxy? Well, I want to be able to play Magic with other people with a lower barrier as possible, and I really like the idea of not playing against someone else's wallet. I don't want to sit down and compare disposable income, wallet size, how long we've been playing Magic for, or what size of extensive collection we inherited from a friend or family member. I want to play tactics, skill, and strategy based upon the card pool of Magic and the rules involved. I don't want it to be about how expensive are the cards in my deck versus how expensive are the cards in your deck. And for that reason, I'm very pro allowing some number of proxies in events that are running for things like Highlander events, like Australian and Canadian Highlander, Vintage, Legacy, and even to a lesser extent Modern. Obviously, WPN stores can't do this because they will lose their support from Wizards of the Coast to be able to purchase product, and I completely understand and respect that because there's an industry there that revolves around the cards being played with being the things you chase out of packs. But if you are creating a local scene that wants to play these older formats, and you still want to own and collect the real things, introduce some amount of proxies, allow 10%. Or 10 cards even, to allow people to proxy their dual lands and the power cards and the cards that basically gatekeep the playability of the older formats. I think it's a crying shame that some of the best formats in all of Magic, the singleton formats, the legacy formats, are damaged in their terms of their growth and playability and accessibility through the things like the reserve list and the cost of prohibitively expensive staples. But some people don't want you proxying in Commander either, where the stakes have never been lower, the points don't make sense, and there's no fucking prizes. Exhibit A. This is taken from a Facebook group. That's right. I went on Facebook groups to find comments for this stuff. Yes, don't say I don't suffer for my art. This is why prices are so high on cards, says Clown applying makeup. Just sad that true lovers have come to. Nobody is willing to save and spend time and money like everyone who truly enjoys the game. Proxies are excuses for you not taking the time to build shit correctly. Now, not everyone on this Facebook group was accepting this shit. Some of them were doing laughing emojis because this is obviously some true clown shit. I guess the question is owning luxury cardboard game pieces the moral high ground that people like this suggest? Is the true test of your virtuous self-conditioning and ethics and your love of the game based upon the idea that you spent money to buy that mana crypt for $100+? Of course it fucking isn't. It's such a dumb idea. It basically has this admission that the game can be paid to win, which I don't believe the game is. It's paid to compete when proxies aren't involved. But in this situation, you want people with more disposable income and just more money to be able to play more powerful cards, because it's hard to argue that some of the more powerful cards aren't more money. Mana Crypt is a fantastic example of that. Absolute Commander staple, and the cheapest one on the market right now being almost $200. I think this whole bit is people clamoring to find reasons why they are losing, and instead of looking at their own play or the kind of game being facilitated by the conversations prior to the game using the rule zero conversation, they instead land on this idea that someone playing a Mana Crypt, for example, that didn't cost them $180 must be the problem. This person's view shares some tidbits with the idea that net decking is evil. The idea that you must come to a conclusion around how to play Magic based solely upon your own self-experiences and the cards in front of you. You can't go online to buy or to print proxies of them. Actually, no, that's not true. You can't go online to print proxies of them nor get information about how to approach the strategy from creators and deck builders and pros and similar, but you are allowed to go online and buy. So it's weird. You've got to be self-contained in terms of how you engage with the game until it comes down to money. I guess there's some dirty element to capitalism where the idea that you're spending money on something makes you more worthwhile, makes your engagement with it truer or more respectful or more, true. Then there was this one, which I'm gonna read out. Sorry, it's a big block of text, but I think it's fantastic. There's been a lot of proxy debate on here. Yes, I've been part of it, lol. I even admit to bait posts just to get a rise out of people. But all the nonsense aside, why proxy? The point of deck building as a skill is to make the best decks you can out of your personal collection. Yeah, we're there again. There's some sort of virtuous, stalwart position of, I didn't use someone else's information. I decided to cook this dish without consulting a chef first. The point of deck building as a skill is to make the best decks you can out of your personal collection. Not true. Deck building itself is not completely constrained to what you own. You can borrow, buy, beg, don't steal, or proxy. Those options are available. You're just arbitrarily saying they aren't. To use cards you don't own defeats the purpose. I don't mean it as an insult when I say I think proxy users simply don't have the ability to make effective decks out of the cards they actually own. That's simply the only reason I'd see the proxy. Not perhaps that you want to play with a card you just don't own or can't get hold of. Because sometimes cards are expensive simply because there's not enough of them in the wild too. It's not always power level. Every win I get, I take pride in the fact that I built the deck with my own strategies. I found in my own collection. I don't see why someone would want to deprive themselves of that. Yes, better cards exist, but so do better cars, clothes, and houses. Yes, my friend, this is why the video is called what it is. You wouldn't proxy a car, would you? That doesn't mean we get to utilize these things. Well, if only we all could, right? Just because we can't doesn't mean that wouldn't be a great utopian ideal. If anything, the proxy of Magic cards is what I love or wish we could do with all consumer goods, right? It'd be fantastic if we all could just have the things we want and enjoy. I've been playing since Judgment, and the most expensive card I own is Coat of Arms. My lifetime total investment is under $100, and my decks don't suffer for it. Use what you own. That's what makes a deck builder good. Okay, you've been playing since Judgment and only spent $100? Judgment released on May 27th, 2002. 22 years ago. That means $100 divided by 22 is 4.545454. It doesn't matter. It's $4.50. You've only bought one booster per year for the last 22 years. I'm starting to feel sorry for the guy. Again, I've already labored the points that I would say to this. It's someone looking for reasons to feel morally superior to others and giving into this capitalist idea that if things are worth money, they should be worth money and no one else is allowed access to them. Like healthcare. I assume this person's American. This next one is fucking phenomenal. To solve the proxy issue, everyone who doesn't proxy should just proxy a turn 2 win deck. And if someone asks if proxies are allowed, say sure. Just let me get my proxy deck. Since proxies aren't the issue and it's Wizards' fault for creating a power level issue, they should be fine with that. Edit, for those who can't tell, I'm being facetious. To be honest, I almost couldn't tell because this point is so fucking stupid. This pertains to the other side of things, where it's not about some sort of moral superiority around buying cardboard. It's about the idea that proxies break down some sort of balancing element to Magic. That Magic itself is more balanced if the powerful cards are expensive. No. There is this weird topsy-turvy logic if you don't fully commit to the idea that if expensive cards are the more powerful cards, if less people have them, there's less power knocking around. That does make sense for saying, well, that will make the game have less powerful items and game pieces floating around, right? Well, no, because not everybody's income level's the fucking same, is it, you dickhead? It just means that some people will have access to your mana crypts and your cyclonic rifts, while other people are stuck playing their 6 mana, not instant speed, fucking overwhelming wave shit. I couldn't think of a cyclonic rift version that's cheaper. Whelming wave. Actually, sometimes this is just better than rift in some decks. Oh, Magic's complicated. It imbalances the game by putting more power into the hands of those who can afford it and not into the kids, newbies, and people with less income. That's not balancing. That's paying to win. The other thing about this statement is this, just sure, let me get my proxy deck. As if this person is so fucking good that the moment all gloves are off and everyone's got the most powerful decks, they're like, wham, bam, I win. Told you. See, if only I couldn't afford this mana crypt, maybe I wouldn't have auto won the game. I don't want to be too harsh to this person, but I'm going to assume they've never won a game on turn 2 in their lives. Most, yes, I know not all, but most, marketplace expensive cards are very high powered. They're rare to keep the game from everyone having an OP deck filled with cannons against butter knives, so to speak. So cost completely aside, wouldn't proxying high power cards offset the balance of the game in general? I know it'd level the playing field for some if they can't afford those powerhouse cards and need more oomph in their decks, but wouldn't that also allow people to proxy a full deck of just absolute deal breakers, instant win cards? Yes, that's right, dear poster that I've revoked the name of. If you spend $200 on a card, it will instantly win you the game the moment you walk into the store. Further still, if your deck costs more than $1,000, Albert Einstein will walk into the building clapping, then offer to suck you off. It's the same point again. And I want to label that I think people using proxies, it does create an arms race of people playing with cards that are probably too powerful for a casual power level, but that's because Commander itself is inherently broken. The format does not work unless we make it work. We have to have those conversations, or at least have that social text of, I'm not going to Armageddon you without a win con. That is part of the format. It's nothing to do with the price of Mana Crypt. And lastly, my friend is anti-proxy in the sense of printing cards allows unlimited power to the printee. No, it fucking doesn't. The original point from the very, very first clown, my favorite one of all of them really, is this is why prices are so high on cards. The idea that people are proxying is actually increasing the price of cards. That's not how this works. If the demand is down, the card prices will actually fall. That brings me very neatly to my next point. Wizards of the Coast have to be careful. They are actually making lengths with the RCQ system, for example, and the return of Pro Tours and similar, that we are seeing a return to like competitive play being a thing. It's not quite the lofty heights it once was. It's not quite GPs multiple times across Europe a year, but we're getting there. Because without competitive play, with a focus on Commander, with content being consumed primarily around Commander, with Commander gameplay shows being the most popular thing on YouTube in the Magic space, it does beg the question why you'd ever buy a real Magic card. And ultimately that's where it comes to that point I wanted to come to towards the end of the video. It's not the end of the video yet, I've got one more point after this. But collectability. Magic cards being worth something is part of the allure of collecting Magic cards. In some ways, it makes opening boosters, playing drafts and sealed and similar things like that, or buying the decks for constructed, it makes it worthwhile because you know your cards might be worth something further down the line. It actually offsets some of the cost of getting into the hobby. Without competitive play sanctioned by Wizards of the Coast to encourage that, like your local store leagues, modern and legacy events, GPs and similar, limited events, all of that jazz. Standard, I guess. I haven't mentioned standard, but anyway, without that stuff, printer go burr. And there is a thing that I actually skipped over in my script that I'm going to come back to and put here in the video, is that some people are going to argue that proxies destroy the sanctity of Magic, or the visual identity, the aesthetics, the style, the feel of Magic. But that's just bollocks, isn't it? Like that argument might have worked perhaps 5 years ago, maybe 6. But with Secret Layers being the way they are, frame treatments and universes beyond, Magic has never looked more like the toy aisle from Walmart. And personally, I don't have much of an issue with it. The universes beyond thing I'm completely on board with and I love. The Warhammer and Doctor Who decks are some of my favorite Magic products of recent time and have brought me all sorts of joy. I'm not making the joke about the Walmart toy aisle as a reductive or a value-based judgment, but it is true. Magic is all over the place in terms of style and aesthetic. From photo-real depiction of the latest Doctor in Doctor Who, through to like color-graded red borders that we're not quite sure how these even look yet, right through to breakfast cereal Magic cards. My proxy of Thalia's Lieutenant, where it's a lobster wearing one of my t-shirts from 5 years ago, that's no different to any of this stuff. That's just how Magic is now. That argument unfortunately doesn't hold up, my friend. That argument's also one of the arguments against alters. I love altered Magic cards. I'll talk more about that in a video soon. If you want to see a video about alters or about counterfeit cards and how to detect them, I could make those videos too. Let me know in the description below. So ultimately, that's where I land on with proxies, is that I think they're great for leveling the playing field and allowing people to engage with Magic as what it is, a game where we play strategic and deck building choices against one another, and we're not gate-kept by the overly expensive price of the cardboard we're playing with. I do want some cards to be worth money. I want accessible game pieces for the most part, and then expensive versions and variants of those things. That's the ideal, the platonic ideal of Magic cards that I've talked about in the past. And I want that to exist and be supported by organized play needing real Magic cards to be played. I think that's a reasonable thing to keep Magic alive, Wizards of the Coast continue making the game, and the entire ecosystem and secondary market and industry that's built around Magic, which I'm biased towards because it's my job and my life now, but it keeps those things propped up too. And that's a delicate balancing act of us allowing proxies and Wizards of the Coast just giving us no incentive not to proxy in Commander, for example, because there's no reason not to, versus the other side where Wizards need to make it like cards are desirable and only the real thing makes sense. Ultimately, I'm an old school, old man who owning the actual original cards is still really exciting for me. So I don't think I'll ever be able to shake that. Even if the world goes and Magic goes to the point where it's just Commander all the time, every day, and no one's playing another format anymore, I'll probably still want to own the cards. I think that's just a hallmark or a holdover from the days gone by, perhaps. Let me know what you think about proxies in the comments below as I read them all. And if you want to see a similar video to this discussing the culture around Magic and stuff like that, there'll be a video on screen right now for you to click. So you should click it and go watch that, because I bet it's good, because it's got my voice and my chin on it, and I'm sexy.